you guys, y'all get that little thing. Um, so generally a mood board is, lack of better terms or different terms, the mood you're creating for your project. So um, when we have like an inspirational folder or a mood board, say on our Pinterest, that's kind of like a brain dump of ideas, right? You're not quite sure where we're going. You've thrown them all in there. I have always a folder, every project I do have a folder that's called inspiration, and everything gets dumped in there. But that's like everything. I can have all different ideas of what I think I might want to do, but until I've nailed down one, especially if I'm showing this to a client, that's where that mood board should be. So when you guys are handing in your mood board, your photo, this should kind of be your finalized version versus your brain dump of ideas. So I'm just going to show you, pardon me, I'm going to, so I found this image, which is quite close to even design style. I just recreated one like that. This is how I generally would do a mood board, a breakdown. So obviously not exactly how we would be doing this project, but a good way for you guys to think about how you could apply this to different products or projects, sorry. So say this is probably a little bit more interior design type thing, different textures, design inspiration, lifestyle, colors, etc. So this is all on what the hell is it called? My Canvas. This is all on My Canvas, so you guys can take a look at this if you want, for a good little breakdown. It should also look nice. For the most part, backtracking a moment back to last project, for the most part, most of your presentations looked really nice. Some of them were just like a slap together, like a quick, like some maybe didn't have a title page, some maybe had a title page and it was just, the basic font when you had when you start a text box in InDesign. So like we're designers, so everything should look designed, right? So when we're handing stuff in, it should look obviously like it was designed for a top high-end client, aka me. So that's kind of just like a little inspiration of what your mood board could look like, and I'll just kind of show you one of what mine looks like. Oh, where did my file go? Sorry, give me a second. That's why a week off and I'm all discombobulated. Okay, so this is, for instance, say mine. So it's not obviously exactly like the other one, but I've created it somewhat like it. So this is also where either you have your meeting and you're discussing with your client what these are, or in your rationalization, you're discussing what these bits and pieces are. So this is say this one and this picture here. This would convey the style of illustration that I'm going to be doing. So sectioning off, say, these shadows, harsh shadows, but still with a bit of realism, not a lot of gradient tones in there. If there are gradients, they're kind of really well hidden in those little pieces, but a lot of realism in the eyes still. So making sure that that is in there. This in particular, I like the way I'm choosing to say put greenery and foliage in my image as my additional element to my photo. So I like the way this looks. I like how this pops out. So I'm looking to convey something like that. And also looking at this solid color background is what I would like to integrate into mine. I've included this because I would like to play around with the skin tones and the hair color, not do it exactly like mine. So say for instance, a blue face, I think would be kind of interesting. So using this as an example for my client to say, this is how I would convey or how I would make the final portrait look color-wise. Then an area with colors. So these would be, say, my 3 main colors, and then have a secondary color back here. And then here are some added elements. So some foliage, and then also looking to integrate some line art style elements in my final portrait. So everything I've kind of just blabbed away on here would technically be in my small write-up over here. So You don't need to literally go and point to different pieces, but if you're speaking about them, then I understand where all of these pieces are coming from. And then essentially at the end um, of your project, does it look like your mood board? Did you completely do a 360? If you guys decide to do a 360, that's totally up to you. But I'll want you to kind of circle back and talk to me about that again versus here's my mood board and now here's my final product, and there's a complete disconnect between the two of them. Because also if that was your client, I know this is self-portrait, so it's a bit weird to be using these as your examples, but if that was your client, if you gave them your mood board of what you're going to be doing for your design, and then you all of a sudden showed up with this, they're like, what happened to this idea? So again, this is all about you. This is your face and this is your portrait, but we still need to pretend or envision that this project is for our client. Does that make sense? So that's that. Again, with your portraits, they have to be you. They should have some realism in there. If there is some elements that that kind of take away a little bit from the realism is fine, but again, it should always be recognizable to you 100%. I always suggest maybe picking an element that you decide to put a lot of like detail into perhaps. So Dan, when Dan was originally did this course in this project, he always stressed the eyes, which I actually very much agree with. It's like taking a good photo. You know, when you connect with someone with the eyes, it immediately looks like they're looking at you, and it really adds that connection. And I think that with our portraits and our illustrations, if you can get those eyes to really, really pop and to look realistic, it immediately adds that kind of wow factor. So kind of like in that example I posted, you know, it's not like a full on, it doesn't look like a painting. That the style of illustrations I'm looking to portray, there's a lot of like harsh blocking of shadows, but when you go into those eyes add that bit of realism to it. So thinking about stuff like that when you're doing your portraits. I'm just going to jump back to the brief. I actually have a couple other things I did want to show you. And this, there was stuff I think, or I thought I put up there, but I didn't. Whoops. Sorry, I'm just getting my ducks in a row here, guys. I thought I had everything open, but clearly I did not. Okay, I'll find that in a moment when I'm getting, let's get to this. Just gonna screen share. So here are some portrait examples. This is literally just by doing a Google. So I have had some people go, I don't know what you mean by a portrait. Literally anything. So Google portrait illustration. So it can be like this. So again, it's a really simplified version of a portrait, but it still looks realistic. You can still obviously tell who that person, I don't know who that is, but can still tell who that person actually is. Something comic book style like that, totally fine. A couple people last year had done comic book style where the I forget the name of that, with all little circles like you would like a comic book. So some people did that style, which was really cool. It can be difficult. So if you do try to attempt that, do it well. A little more realistic, same thing, realism. This probably doesn't show enough in here, but the actual illustration of the eye is really, really good. So that's always a nice little thing. Again, some realism. You can see most of these. A nice way to break up those shadows is this way. A lot of people will do the polarized from Photoshop. We'll go over this next week, where it breaks up the shadows, and then you can go in and trace those little itty bits and then start layering up. So that's also going to be where we talk about next week, how to layer those things up. So I'm making sure that this is your illustration, not just a Photoshop version. This was one that Dan had on here, which I think is a great example of adding a lot of artistic flair to this. There's some typography filtered into this. This is so brilliantly done. So don't think you have to do something like this. If you have that ability to go in a direction like this, go for it. Obviously, very challenging, but you do have time. If you have the ability to do it, go for it. There's been some friggin' amazing things that I've seen come out of these projects. So it's really up to you guys to decide how much you want to or not want to put in here. So this was a proposal reference from someone from last year, so or a couple years ago. So here's her photo, here's her rationale, color palette. She's got a sketch going on, and then this is the style she was conveying. So she's obviously going for this very 80s neon electric sort of look and feel to it. Obviously the color palette reflects that. There's her photo. So in the end, her image actually, or sorry, her portrait really did look like this. So that's a good example. I could put this one up there for you guys if you guys want to just have reference to this, and I'll pop this up there as well. I totally thought I put those up there, but I didn't. So circling back to the brief. So again, we're week 6, so there will be time today. I did notice a few people signed up for some one-on-ones, which is great. We'll get to those. Next week, we'll do a little tutorial kind of how to get started. You know, where to begin, how to kind of kick things off. I'm going to try to hopefully post something ahead of time, and then we'll go over it again in class. And then in week 8, we have a check-in. So next week is 7. The week after that, a check-in point. So I just want to make sure you guys have things started. I would prefer, again, like I said, I would prefer not to see like to show up in week 8 and go like, oh, here, my thing's done. Unless you can prove to me prior to that, you can show me your layers, show me all of that stuff. Then that's fine. And then it's due week 10. Okay, so I will be adding the progress check in week 8 onto my Canvas. So this way you guys do have that in your calendar to know that that will not just going to be a one-on-one, it'll be a hand-in. Someone, it's funny enough, someone has asked if you could do double exposure. This is actually something I was going to bring up. I'm not sure if anybody knows Nicole from last year. Tall, very tall, blonde hair, Nicole. She did, I wish I could find last year's, I'm really upset. She did a double exposure of her face. So one was looking one way, one looked the other way, and then they were layered up. It was done so well. Obviously a lot more work because she essentially did 2 portraits. I think it was looking 2 different ways. Anyways, it was beautifully done. So you guys like totally open to doing whatever you would like to do on this. I know sometimes having a lot of freedom, a lot of freedom's good, but then sometimes a lot of freedom, you're like, I kind of need a little bit more direction, because it happened to me when I was in college, and I was in 2nd year and I took a 3rd year course, and it was kind of a course of like, do whatever the hell you want. And I was like, I need you to tell me what to do. So this, I'm just telling you to do your portrait, and then you guys just try to have some fun with it and do whatever you possibly want to try out. Do what you want to do in here. Add the elements you've always wanted to try out. Add the elements that you think or design style that is strong to you and your abilities, so you can do it well. I'm just going to stop recording now.